How to grow the company. The most important part of understanding how you can grow your company is to make sure you pay yourself first. Oftentimes, entrepreneurs start a business and they forget that they are the primary worker in their business. And in all likelihood, a worker, if you were to go work for some other business, the first thing you would look at as in a worker's perspective is, how do I get paid, right? And so one of the things that we're going to stress in this module is, how does the worker of your business, and most likely that will be you, the entrepreneur, how do they get paid first? So if we can answer that question and make sure we're still profitable as a business, we can answer the question of, can we grow the business? First thing we need to understand is a profit calculation. Profit equals revenues minus costs. And revenues is defined as money brought in from sales of the product or service. So that's all the money that you bring in. Costs are everything that you give up, right? Those are the amounts given up to get something. For example, to get the business started, to pay the rent, or offer the product. So anything that you have to pay are considered costs. Okay, so if you take all the money that you bring in minus all the money that you put out, or costs that you put out, that would be the profit. So there are three types of costs that we want to understand. There's the startup cost. That's the cost to get your business up and running or to grow a new enterprise within an existing business. So you can have an existing business and you can start up a new division or a new project, and that might incur a startup cost. Or if you're brand new, that would be all the costs to get it up and running to the point where customers can actually start purchasing the product or service. The fixed costs are after your customers are using and enjoying your products, they're paying you. The fixed costs are the cost to keep the business running over a set period of time. That set period of time can be over the course of a day, monthly, weekly, annually, however you want to set it. Traditionally, the fixed cost is the monthly fixed cost, how much it keeps you to keep the business up and running. And finally, the variable cost. This is the cost to provide each unit of product or service. And this can include your time or the worker's time to produce a unit, but the variable cost is the cost to make each additional unit that you sell to your customers. And we'll describe each of these in more detail. So the three ways to make money in your business, the first is to be the worker. So whether you're hiring an employee or you are doing the work yourself, the worker would be paid to make the product or provide the service. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're doing the work and you're not paying yourself, you're missing out on a way that you could pay yourself in a business. So the first way to make money in your business is to be the worker and do the actual work. Okay, and a good way to remember this is to ask yourself, if I didn't do the work and I had to pay someone else, how much would it cost me to pay that worker? So you should always be paying yourself, even if it's not a physical check or an actual payment. You should always be recording how much you work and how much it would cost to pay that worker to do the work. The next way is the manager. And this is the manager manages the work to be done, but they're not necessarily doing the specific work to produce the product or service. Okay, so they might be managing a team of employees, or they might be talking to the customer to get them to understand more about their business. They might be doing tours of the facility or walking them through the process. Anything that's not related to doing the specific work that the customer is paying for and receiving. That would be the work of the manager. And finally, the owner. That's when you receive profits from the business. When you get to the equation revenues minus costs, anything that's left over in the business at the end of the month or at the end of the year, those are the profits, and those profits can be paid to the owner of the business. So there's three ways to be making money in your business, and it's very, very important to identify the three roles that is happening in your business. And if you are doing these three roles, it's important to identify when you switch between the roles and how much you're going to be making in each. And you want to be sure that you're paying yourself for each of these roles if you ever have hopes of growing your business. So how do you grow your business? One is you pay the worker, whether it's you doing the work or someone else. It's very important to pay the worker. It's important to pay the manager to understand all the time and effort it takes to manage your business and be making sure the person that does that role, whether it's you or an employee, are paid. And finally, have enough left over to pay the owner. If you have paid yourself to do the work, or if you have paid your employee to do the work, if you paid yourself to be the manager or an employee to do the manager, and you have money left over, that is a very good sign that you can grow the business. Okay? And the reason why you want to project cost for each category, even if you're doing the job of all three of these roles, is that if you ever wanted to grow your business and turn it over to another manager or another worker, or if you even wanted to sell the business from one owner to the next, if you can prove that each of these roles can be paid by someone else other than you, and you can still end up with a profit, that would make your business profitable. That means that you could have a self-running machine, a self-running process that is making profit within the industry. And this is the only way you would be able to grow and replicate the business, because you're making a profit on each area. So let's give an example here. Let's imagine that you want to sell tamales at the farmer's market. And you can imagine any product, but this specific person wants to sell tamales. So they're selling tamales at a farmer's market. So what's the three roles? What does the worker do? The worker actually makes the tamales. Okay, so they might work the day before making the tamales and get them all ready to go. Okay, what does the manager do? The manager might coordinate where the farmer's market location is going to be that week. They might coordinate the checks that are going to go out to pay for that. They might schedule everything. Those are all roles of the manager, right? And they also might host the event, right? So they might be working there that day, and they might be doing sales and everything like that. They are not, the role of the manager is not to make the unit itself, but you might consider that the manager is there to operate the booth that day. And finally, the owner. The owner is the one that decides that we're going to make tamales, and they're going to decide that they're going to sell it in farmers markets, and they're going to decide the ingredients and how to hire people and all those things that the owner decides to do. So those are the three roles, right? So one thing that to consider is, like, what's the difference between the worker and manager? So it can be kind of difficult to distinguish what those activities that each of those roles will encompass. So a hint is, if you run out of units to sell, only the worker would be paid to make another unit. So that's where I would give a little hint on, like, what is the role of the worker and what is the role of the manager. So the manager could sit there and they could sell 0 tamales during the day. They could sell 1,000 tamales a day. But if you ran out of tamales, who is going to be the one to make that additional tamale? And that would be the worker. Okay, so the manager is not really dependent on how many they sell within some realistic time frame. Yes, there could be a point where you sell so many tamales in the day that you need to hire another worker to help sell. But just to keep it simple, like, there's probably a good wide range of tamales that they could sell without having to hire another manager to operate the business that day. That's the example of, if you needed to sell one more unit, who would you have to hire? You would have to hire the worker to make more tamales. Next up will be the economics of one unit.